Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army.
Welcome to another episode of Eradicating Program Ignorance, the Town Crier. And we're going to get back on track again this week, and we're going to start discussing again the topics for the health tyranny series that were originally discussed. And yeah, we have stepped through the GMOs at this point, but it might surprise you, out of all of the related topics for this series, such as vaccines and pharmaceutical drugs and GMOs and geoengineering, that the next topic I'm going to speak of, the topic for today, is fluoride. Because what most people don't understand is the reach or the mechanism for the facilitation of the dangers of other components that are contained in fluoride. Fluoride is probably one of the worst things to ever have happened to the United States. And we'll go into that a little bit deeper. Today, our discussion is going to be based on an article I wrote called The Facts Are. Fluoride is highly neurotoxic and it's in your bottled water. So our topic is fluoride. And let us continue. We live in a country that used to boast of having the most freedom, the highest average standard of living, the highest level of productivity, the highest level of scholastic achievement, and one of the, if not the healthiest societies on this planet. My, how the mighty have fallen, because not one of them is true today. Now, that's not to say that the United States, being a first world country, doesn't rank high in the 190 plus nations on this planet. What it says is all the things we used to boast at being number one, we're not. And that number continues to fall. Because today, we don't have the highest level of productivity. Most of our manufacturing jobs have moved overseas. We don't have the highest average standard of living. I think we're something like 12th or 13th on the planet at this point. We don't have the most freedom, because in the democracy survey done globally, the United States didn't even place in the top 20 out of 194 nations. We don't have the highest level of scholastic achievement. We've been beat out on that for years. And we don't have the healthiest society on the planet. At this point in time, you now live in the nation with the worst chronic health on the planet, yet the nation that spends almost 10 times more than its closest rival on health care for us. Does that make any sense to you? Because it sure as the frick doesn't make any sense to me. As I said before, my, how the mighty have fallen. You look at the propaganda you see every single day, and anybody who talks like me, that's treason. Anybody who talks like me, what the hell? We have got no love for America. When just the opposite is true. We are watching America die, not just politically, physically. And that's the reason for this health, series. Because once we get through with this, then we're going to see how the politics ties into all of this. And if you think that the health portion of this is tough and rough, and it is, believe me, it's nothing compared to what we're going to get into when you find out the who and the why. The why is the biggest. Believe me, it is. In the Liberty Beacon Project, we often discuss the dumbing down of America and point the proverbial finger at the failings of our system of education or the massive onslaught of propagandized so-called entertainment and news shoveled down our throats by the mainstream media. But is this the true mechanism of dumbing down a society, or are there more physical scenarios in play? Aha. Are these assaults on our cognitive abilities intentional and malicious, the result of corruption and complicity, or the result of an incompetent government and regulatory system? And if you pick number two, then you've got to realize that these two government agencies are run by the stupidest people on the planet. But hell, your choice. But is there a more direct or physical path to the mental maligning of America? We discuss often the dangers of such known mechanisms as vaccines, GMOs, geoengineering, all proven to cause physical harm to the human physiology. But rarely do we hear, not very much or even enough, about a huge contributing blight on a vast portion of this population, fluoride. This substance truly has the capability to dumb down and sicken America in a most efficient fashion. Okay? As you will see when we continue this discussion. I also need to tell you that there are several scientists out there that blatantly state that fluoride causes more cancer in a short period of time, and more people die from those cancers than any other chemical ever produced in the United States. And that comes from a scientist who worked for the American Heart Association for 34 years. All right. Fluoride, what is it? Why am I just like bitching so loud about this? What the hell is fluoride? You put it in our toothpaste, you put it in our water, and here's this guy screaming about this is the end of the planet, the end of the world. We've got fluoride. All right, what is fluoride? Fluoride is a hazardous waste. Let's start out with that, people. It's not some God-given miraculous component. It is hazardous waste. That's its humble beginnings, a byproduct of the aluminum and more so today the fertilizer industrial manufacturing process in the form of hydrogen fluoride. This byproduct is extremely corrosive and toxic to the environment and human physiology. Believe me, the human physiology, and has been proven so scientifically and through real world exposure over and over again. In other words, we have documented facts exactly what happens to human beings when they are exposed to, over a long period of time, set amounts of fluoride or a lot of fluoride in a short period of time, so on and so forth. I guess we could just bring this up real quick. Nazi prison camps. Okay. None of this is a guess. Everything I'm talking to you or saying to you, these are all known facts to everybody except most of the American people who consume this crap every single day and on a continuous basis. Fluoride is also a known neurotoxin. Remember that word, neurotoxin, meaning it will destroy your brain, which is a substance that inhibits the functions of neurons. Neurons are found throughout the brain and the nervous system, and the functions of these unique cells is super critical for a variety of tasks, ranging from, atomic nervous system jobs like swallowing to higher level brain functions. Yup, like thinking and memory. Neurotoxins can work in a variety of ways, with the danger of exposing very depending on the neurotoxin involved. And we're talking about fluoride here. And the dosage, well, we'll talk about a little bit more about dosage as we go along. In some cases, neurotoxins simply severely damage neurons so that they just can't function. or attack the signaling capability of neurons by blocking releases of various chemicals or interfering with the methods of reception for such transmissions, and sometimes telling neurons to send false signals. A neurotoxin may also destroy neurons altogether, resulting in brain damage. Why am I putting so much emphasis on neurons? We all know that our brain works by electrical discharge. Anybody can tell you that you can measure the electrical, functionality going on in your brain at any given time. How does that work? It's a little discharge between one cell and another. This is what's transferred on these neurotransmitters or these neurons. This is how you think. When you shut them off or you force them to send false signals, that's brain damage. And this has been known for quite some time. Are you aware that as adults, you and me, okay, those listening, we have what is called a blood-brain barrier. That barrier restricts the passage of toxins such as metals, like, aluminum, mercury, lead, from crossing into the brain proper and causing massive damage. Now, you need to understand that metals such as mercury and aluminum are highly toxic to the brain, as is lead, and the central nervous system, and are contained in such mechanisms, at least the aluminum and the mercury, as vaccines and geoengineering, chemtrail fallout. This is a fact, not a joke, so don't chuckle, and because we're going to discuss that too. Another week, another topic. And now in the food we eat. Why do I say that? Well, gee, Monsanto applied for and got patents for vegetables that would grow in aluminum-saturated soil, which doesn't exist naturally. So if it's going to get into the soil, it's got to be falling out of the sky. All right, enough of that right now, okay? So these are highly toxic to the brain, okay? You've got to understand one of the mechanisms that is tripped, which is something I stated in my opening comments by fluoride, is a passage across that blood-brain barrier. That blood-brain barrier keeps you safe from a lot of these toxic metals that would absolutely destroy brain cells if they got into your brain. You drink fluoride, you brush your teeth with fluoride, swallow a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a bit too. And guess what? You have completely opened the door for any and all of these heavy metals to come in and start to slaughter brain cells. Okay? Fluoride facilitates these metals across this barrier, allowing for a constant barrage of metals from, as we stated, a multitude of sources on the brain, commencing to slaughter brain cells. I could say commencing to shut off brain cells, but I got to explain something to you. If it slaughters brain cells, it slaughters them. A fact is a fact. And just because the word doesn't sound pretty doesn't mean it's not a fact. Once a portion of the brain is destroyed, there's no going back. The brain doesn't repair itself. You may be able to cross signals and train a portion of the brain to do some of the things that another destroyed portion of the brain could do, but it's never going to be the same. The brain is not self-repairing. The damage is permanent. Now let's discuss the fact that an infant or a small child with no blood-brain barrier, they don't have one. They don't have one in the placenta. In the womb. They don't have one for almost a full year as it develops once they're born. Okay? All right. So ask yourself, if this has the ability to do what I'm describing to you, to a full-blown adult, okay, how much protection does this child have who has no blood-to-brain barrier? Let's start to think about why we are raising, for the last 2 generations in this country, the most mentally handicapped generations in the history of this planet. Autism, 1,000-fold increase in 3 generations. ADHD, Alzheimer's, dementia. Gee, let's cut open and do a cross section on somebody who died of Alzheimer's. And guess what we find in their brain? A crap load of aluminum that shouldn't be there. What does aluminum do? It destroys the connections between the brain cells so you can't think. What does Alzheimer's do? Gee, you can't think. That aluminum shouldn't be there. But if you drink the fluoride and you open the gate, you let it in. Fluoride is also a very active substance biologically, interfering with many basic physiological processes in the human body. Gee, can it get worse? This is also common knowledge and why the EPA sets saturation levels in drinking water. We got to talk about that, okay? Why do they set levels in drinking water? Let me explain something to you. The amount of fluoride in a 12-ounce glass of water, maybe a little less than a 12-ounce glass of water, equals the amount of fluoride in a pea-sized portion of toothpaste, fluoridated toothpaste. Remember that. 12-ounce glass of water, maybe about 11.5 ounces, but roughly 12 ounces, compared to a pea-sized amount of toothpaste. Yet, on that toothpaste, it tells you that if you swallow that pea-sized chunk of toothpaste, you need to call poison control. All right. I just got done telling you that the amount of fluoride in fluoridated water, municipal water, in a 12-ounce glass roughly equals that pea size of toothpaste, which if you swallow, you need to call poison control. How many glasses of water does a doctor or do your health officials or professionals recommend you drink a day? Oh, anywhere between 8 and 10 to 12-ounce glasses of water. That's 8 to 10 times the amount of poison fluoride in that pea-sized helping of toothpaste. Why haven't you called poison control? You have consumed 8 to 10 times the amount of toxic fluoride that tube of toothpaste tells you requires you to call poison control. Yet your doctor and your health officials are telling you to drink as much water as you can drink every day. Damn it, it's good for you. You looking at this just a little bit different right now? There was a study published in December of 2016 by the International Society of Fluoride Research in New Zealand entitled Developmental Neurotoxicity of Fluoride, a quantitative risk analysis, 379 towards establishing a safe daily dose of fluoride for children. It concludes that lowered IQ is indeed a risk of children whom consume uncontrollable dosages of fluoride in public water supplies. All right. Also, a study done in the United States where they found, and this is exactly the way the mainstream media gives it to you, you know what? The kids are a little less smart in the areas where there was less fluoridation than they were in the areas where there was a lot of fluoridation. Anybody listening to this figured out what the fault in that is? This is what I talk about when I talk about, programmed ignorance. Well, when there's less fluoride, there's a little bit less stupidity amongst our children. That didn't say that, and it's a little crass, but I'm making a point here. The one thing they never mention, and they won't, is the difference in the IQ of the children living in communities with no water fluoridation. And you will never hear it because the difference is striking. Are things starting to make a little bit more sense to you right now? Okay. So, what we need to discuss right now is how do we get away from this stuff? Okay? One of the easiest ways to get away from this stuff is to drink bottled water, because bottled water tells you what's in it, and bottled water is supposed to be the healthiest stuff on the planet. It's going to keep you going. If you think for 1 minute you are escaping all this neurological and bodily harm by drinking bottled water, you are not. And if you push back by saying, I checked the labels and they don't list fluoride as an ingredient, let me explain something to you. The EPA does not require bottled water companies to state if their product contains fluoride on their labels. Wait, what? So again, all right, you're buying a product under a false pretense all the time. It's poisoning you? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Wipe that smug grin off your face, because you just got itch bay slapped. They are not required by law in this country to state if that is fluoridated water. If they go down into their basement and start pouring tap water into those bottles, how are you going to know? How? Especially if they don't have to tell you if there's fluoride in your water. But research clearly shows that almost all brands do contain fluoride. And if they don't, they're going to tell you on that bottle. They're going to be awful proud of it because they know the others do. So the next time you go looking for a bottled water to buy, don't buy the bottled water that doesn't say fluoride on it, because if it doesn't say it, it mustn't have it. Buy the one that says it doesn't have it on it, because then it doesn't have it. Okay. Stop to think. We drink about 500 million bottles of fluoridated bottled water a day. What are EPA drinking water regulations for fluoride? In 1974, Congress passed the Safe Drinking Water Act. The law requires EPA to determine the level of contaminants in drinking water at which no adverse health effects are likely to occur. The non-enforceable health goals based solely on possible health risks and exposure over a lifetime with an adequate margin of safety are called maximum contaminant level goals, or MCLGs. Contaminants are any physical, chemical, biological, or radiological substances or matter in our water. EPA has set an enforceable regulation for fluoride called a maximum contaminant level, MCL, of 4.0 milligrams per liter, or 4.0 ppm. Now, okay, so we have a limit per unit of water. But what if we consume more water than the average person, or use more water in our cooking, etc.? So, in fact, there is no set dosage or limit specified, and the result of this is the government has no idea which of us are poisoning ourselves without knowing it, nor do they apparently care. More on that later. What this states is that there is no safety net preventing any of us from doing untold damage to ourselves or our children. Fluoride, who controls the dosage given to each individual? Nobody. Who controls our average fluoride, our daily fluoride intake? Nobody. They just say they do. You will find out that this government mandated level is still way too high to protect the human body from the extremely toxic and corrosive effects of fluoride. One example is the difference between breastfeeding a baby and one who is fed from formula made with tap water or fluoridated water. The baby who is nursed receives 250 times less fluoride. And this is at a time when the child's physiology is very weak and susceptible to outside damaging influences, such as fluoride. So if you had a substance known to wreak havoc on the biosphere and to humanity, labeled as hazardous waste, in abundance as a result of industrial manufacturing process, and knew the mechanism to dispose of it properly and legally, incurred a cost of approximately $6,000 a ton. But wait a minute. What if you sold it as a viable product to another companies or municipalities, thus stripping it of its evil classification and could reap a profit instead of a loss? Gee, would you do that? Now, we have only scratched the surface at this point. And again, we'll be talking about this a lot more in the future. And we're not quite done yet, okay? There is also so much more on this topic, hidden below the surface, and like the proverbial iceberg, which, 90% of the bulk is hidden from the eyes of those who actually need to know it. It is what you can't see that will harm you. Many questions remain unanswered by our government. If you do the research, there is a plethora of peer-reviewed research available. You will find out almost immediately that the present level of exposure is very detrimental to all of us, but especially to our young children. So if this information is readily available to the likes of you and me, as I just said, don't you think the protectors of our health, such as the CDC, the EPA, the USDA, are also very aware of this? Again, As far back as the 1950s, scientists and doctors were trumpeting the fact that research proved, listen to me, fluoride could be lethal to mammalian cells in concentrations as low as 1 part in 60 million. 1 part in 60 million. That is far below the 4.0 ppm parts per million set by the EPA, signifying a constant exposure to a neurotoxic substance at levels well above what is known to cause cognitive and physical damage. Aren't you glad they're taking care of you? Gee, if they stop putting fluoride in your water, can you imagine all of these companies that are going to have to pay $6,000 to dispose of this freaking neurotoxic substance properly instead of making $1,000 or more by selling it to your community, water supply so that you and your kids can drink it? Scientists are trumpeting that the cumulative effects over time are most certainly severely damaging to the brain and other organs in the human body, leading to a cacophony of disease and dysfunctions. But not only did no government health agency, listen to them. In fact, the process of fluoridating on municipal water accelerated at that point. How about one more swift kick in the groin, literally, before we proceed to, wrap this up? Why is it a fact that the fertility rate in countries and communities that fluoridate their municipal water is measurably lower than that in countries and communities that don't? Again, I know this. And the information keeps getting worse. What you will see, because I put a video series in that article, and I want you all to go and take a look at these videos because they take what I said to the next level. Okay? What you're going to see in those videos is a very thorough lesson in fluoride, its introduction to American society, the lies and disinformation perpetuated about it, and the deadly effect on a once intelligent, healthy, and thriving society. The burning question here is, have we been too dumbed down to absorb this information and push back on the absolute evil being perpetrated against us? Because, again, if I know this, and now you know this, do you think our government with unlimited resources doesn't? Okay. At this point, I'm going to wrap this up. There are, actually, let me give you a few titles here. There are a few videos here. The first one is Absolute Proof Fluoride Kills. That's the first video. footage of fluoride damaging brain cells and stopping cell reproduction. I have in a video for your observation the actual shutting down of brain cells due to fluoride. You can't argue with this. There's no arguing with this. The next video is the hidden agenda, the fluoride deception. That will literally make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And the last video is Bizarre USA Fluoride History, a full documentary. It will tell you about some of the things I've told you, but in much more detail. These are 3 videos. If this show caught your interest just because it said fluoride and you don't watch those 3 videos, I don't even give a crap. If you stop this show in the middle of the show, go to this article and watch those videos and forget the rest of my show. It's that important. Okay? Please take the time. Please. Next week, I have a feeling I'm going to be swaggering into the vaccine world. And again, all of these topics, this isn't the last time we're going to discuss them. This is the basic information. These are the big guns. We will drag this out. We will show you exactly why these are as evil as we say they are. And then we will dig into them a little deeper as we go along. But we do need to get to a point where we can tell you why this is being done. And if you think the health issues are bad, as I stated at the beginning of this show, why it's being done. And it's being done with full, I don't know, awareness of all the damage it's doing. How can it not be? I know. You know. Do you think they don't know? Anyway, I'll give you a little rest and peace now. I'll wrap it up with this is Eradicating Programmed Ignorance. This is what we do. This is the town crier. I am Roger Landry, the founder and managing director of the Liberty Beacon Project. And this is TLBTV. Y'all have a really, really good evening. And thanks for listening.